the pro, with the former police officer, the former referee, the current broadcaster, the podcaster, the jack of all trades, Big John McCarthy in the flesh, beautiful San Diego, California, for Bellator 300. How we doing?
We got battleships here, man. We're doing all right. It's not a bad place to be right now.
It's not a bad place to conduct an interview. This Schmo is a blessed man.
You are a blessed man, but it's because of the lady that you hang out with, too. I mean, pretty damn good, Schmo. I'm impressed.
Hey, the Schmo's been swinging for the fences, and sometimes we get lucky and we hit some home runs.
You hit one out of the park. Good job.
We appreciate that, man. Now, this is a big-time event. Not many organizations can say they get to 300, but here we are. We got 3 title fights. Life is good.
Right now, life is good. I mean, you got to take a look, and there's a great card. There's a ton of preliminary fights on the card that are fantastic. And then you got the 3 world title fights that, man, in the end, you look at it, all of them, you could go either way on the winners of who's going to be, but I really love the fact that they put that Nurmagomedov versus Primus fight as the main event with the lightweight World Grand Prix involved and the belt on the line. It's the best there is.
So many great storylines, but let's start with this. Former training partners, still really good friends in Liz Carmouche and Ilima. These two have to square away, throw some hands. Obviously, they sparred against each other, but when that cage closes, how do you differentiate between the friendship for the job that you have? Because you know what it's like, man. You got to really go in there until the referee calls stop.
You're just not friends for the basic 30 minutes of time. We're competing against each other, but you're friends no matter what. But the best part, usually when you get training partners that end up fighting each other, they know each other and they know each other well. And the feeling out process is not the same because you know how hard that person hits. You know what they're good at. You know what you think you can take advantage of. And normally it's going to start a little bit faster off of that, and I hope this fight does.
And then let's talk about that main event that you alluded to, and we have an undefeated Nurmagomedov right there in the 155-pound weight division. He's a heavy favorite against Brent Primus. The odds makers, the Schmo saw it as a minus 1667 for Nurmagomedov. That's huge, and plus 700 for Primus. When you look at that, man, what do you think?
Odds makers have their ideas on stuff. I agree with them as far as how good Nurmagomedov is. He is fast. His stand-up is clean. He's got great wrestling. No one is punch-proof, and anybody can be beaten on a given day. And I look at Primus. He's got everything lining for him as far as he got put into this tournament. He had the best fight of his career against Barnaoui in Paris, upsetting Barnaoui in his hometown. And you look and you go, he's got all the experience necessary. Now, does he have the speed to stay with Nurmagomedov? Can he take Nurmagomedov and put him on the ground and put him into trouble? That's the question. We're going to find out.
And then we got Chris Cyborg, the champion. She's fought the who's who. She's fought everybody. And finally, we get this Cat Zingano matchup. This is what Cat Zingano signed up for when she signed with Bellator. What do you think the schmotivation is for Chris Cyborg this late in her career, still doing it strong?
The schmotivation, that was very good. I like that one. Chris has been there, done it all. Kat's in that position. This is her second world title fight. She had the one. Actually, I was the referee for it against Ronda Rousey. It ended quick, and she went out there, and the composure wasn't quite there as far as she made the attempt of taking her down quick, but made the mistake. She got caught. It happens. I think in this fight, you're going to see that she's going to use her maturity. She's going to try to make Chris uncomfortable, get into the clinch with her, which Chris kind of creates that situation a lot. Get into that clinch and see how her wrestling can work in getting Chris to the ground, and then just start grinding on her and do those things. That's what, in my opinion, Kat has to do. Chris needs to go out there. She needs to be smart about staying in the stand-up as much as possible. She's got very good wrestling. She's got great jiu-jitsu. She's a black belt. So if she gets taken to the ground, she's going to be able to protect herself, but it's time in that situation. If you're on your back, normally that means it's not looking good in the judge's eyes, and that's what Kat can do to her. So she needs to keep the fight standing and land those shots when they're open for her.
Big John, you're one of the most utmost professional men in all of mixed martial arts. The Schmo saw you in that feud on the interwebs with Tim Kennedy. He brought it up 9 years back about the Stoolgate incident with Yoel Romero. How do you keep your composure when you got fighters bringing something up from the past and you still take the high ground in every situation?
You take a look at it, and if someone is upset about something from the past, you got to be honest about what truly happened. He's got his version. You can change that version with the truth of what happened. When a cut man who is brought in by the promotion, he's not part of the corner, does something that creates a problem, you can't put it on the fighter. I totally understand, where Tim was at as far as, I think not only the stopping of the second round, he thought that I was stopping the fight, but it was the end of the round. That didn't help. And then when that happened, it kind of took his mindset out of it. So, if he's upset with it, okay. If he's upset with me, okay. But there's nothing that I can do to change it. There was nothing that night that I was going to do that was going to be fair to both fighters. It was impossible for me to do it. I couldn't take something from Yoel. He didn't do it. And that didn't help Tim. And so I understand why Tim was upset with it. But you got to be honest about situations. Say, if I make a mistake, be honest about it, talk about it, figure out where that mistake happened, and then try to move on from it and never allow that mistake to happen again.
Unfortunately, we age, times come, fighters come and go. Let's talk about Stipe Miocic, and let's talk about Jon Jones. Next month, Madison Square Garden, both these guys, Hall of Famers, champions in their own right, are going to be squaring away in the heavyweight division. Do you think it's going to be the last time we see both these men enter the octagon, or do you think both these men still have more to give to this sport?
Well, both of them can still fight, especially being in the heavyweight division. You see guys going into later years, being in their 40s. Everyone looks at Randy Couture and says, well, Randy did it until he's 40. That's pretty unusual. But you will see guys getting into that, 41, 42, 43, up to 45, and that's because heavyweights are just slower and don't move as much. It's a little bit different. Strength is involved more, and the power is there to hurt someone right away and end the fight at any second. But I look at both these guys. Stipe, I love the way he's always competed. I like the way that he conducts himself as a professional. He is someone that you look at as been a great ambassador, representative of mixed martial arts. And so, can he beat Jon Jones? I'll tell you what, if there's anybody that can, he would be that guy with his style that could be that man. But, so far, no one has truly beaten Jon Jones, and there's a reason. He's just that good. And so I don't think it'll be the last fight for Jon if he wins or loses. And I honestly don't think it's going to be the last fight for Stipe, even though Stipe, is in that position. He could pull the plug anytime, win or lose. It's going to be a great fight between two guys that, have been just impeccable in their careers throughout.
Tony Ferguson, he's currently on a losing streak, but he had one of the biggest winning streaks in the UFC lightweight division. He's got Paddy Pimblett, who had a controversial victory the last time he performed inside the octagon. What are your expectations for that fight? And do you think if Tony Ferguson loses this fight, he's going to ultimately retire from mixed martial arts?
You never know with Tony. I've known Tony for a long time. Tony is someone that I've had a good relationship with. He's a great guy. And I look at his career, and the biggest problem that I see with Tony is, Tony has turned into a crowd pleaser as far as wanting to be in the stand-up and do all these things. Tony has always done well when he takes fights to the ground. He's got great wrestling. He doesn't really use the wrestling. He'll let the fight kind of just take its course and get to that ground position, and he puts on the darts really fast. He's got all these great submissions. That's what he needs to go back to. Paddy Pimblett is someone who does not have the experience of Tony, but he's got other things on his side. He's got speed, he's got youth, all of that. Tony is slowing down. There's no doubt. You can't sit there and deny it. He's getting older and he's slowing down. And when you're in the lightweight division, that's tough because all of those guys are fast. And so he's got to adjust his game to being a little bit slower. How are you going to change and attack your opponent? I look at this. This is a good fight for Tony. I look at it as a bad fight for Paddy. Being honest, when I say bad, I say it's a lose-lose in my opinion for Paddy. If he beats Tony, everyone's going to say Tony was on a 6-fight losing streak. He's a shell of himself, all that stuff. They're not going to give him the credit he deserves for beating Tony Ferguson. If he loses to Tony, what is that going to say? That's not a good thing either. So for Tony, I think it's a great fight. For Paddy, I'm not too sure.
One of the greatest Bellator fighters and champions of all time, Iron Michael Chandler. He's waiting for Conor McGregor to accept the fight and those guys to square away inside the octagon. If you were advising Michael Chandler, would you tell him to take a different fight, or would you hold out for that Conor McGregor fight?
Man, I'll tell you what. When that fight was first, put together because of the coaching thing, I said it's never going to happen. I go, Conor is never going to end up fighting Michael Chandler, and I love Michael Chandler, and I think he is a guy who puts it out on the line. He was great in Bellator. He's been great in the UFC. He's turned more towards being the entertainer than the smart fighter at times, but that's his decision, and he wants to put on these wars. You can only just take so many wars, and he's had quite a few of them, and I take a look at him and say, you got to fight smart. I'm still not sure that he's ever going to get that Conor fight. I don't think Conor wants to fight him. I think Conor wants a different opponent, and I think Conor is kind of just, and not because Conor's afraid of him, I just think that Conor is looking at, how do I get to that championship fight without having to fight anybody else? And somehow, Conor seems to be able to do those things, so we'll see if he can get there.
You put the finger in the wind and you make a guess. What do you think it would be? What do you think it would be, a Nate Diaz so we get the trilogy fight if Conor McGregor is choosing a different opponent?
I think the Nate Diaz fight was one that should have been done a long time ago. That trilogy fight makes sense. It makes sense for Conor. It makes sense for Nate. It makes sense for the UFC. It's going to make him a ton of money. So that's a great fight. I look at Conor fighting in the 170-pound division, and you got to be honest about where does he fit into that division with Leon Edwards being, the champion right now. Conor is a stand-up fighter. Can he stand with Leon? Absolutely. Can Leon stand with Conor? Absolutely. So I really look at it. I'm not too sure exactly where that's going to go, but I think if Leon gets past Colby Covington, you're going to see Conor be throwing stuff out there, trying to get that fight right away. The question is, does the UFC do it or not?
There it is. He's always weighing in. Where's Josh Thompson, your other half of the podcast, partner for the Weighing In podcast?
My man Josh is at a wedding. He's the best man at a wedding, and so he's got to do his responsibilities to his friends first, and that's what I love about him.
A loyal guy. What's new with you, my man?
I'm just trying to survive in this world, being a farmer and trying to figure life out, and every now and then I get it right.
How are the chickens? How are the eggs?
The chickens are fantastic. I've probably got about 150 of those, and the eggs are just incredible. I give those out to everyone. I got pigs. I got cows. I don't know. I got it all.
Sugar Sean O'Malley's got a farm himself. What's your advice for him? He's trying to be a farmer.
A lot of guys do. The Pitbull brothers have farms. I mean, it's funny. I was just doing it's Matt Hughes' birthday, and so he's got a birthday party coming up. I think Saturday night I was supposed to go to it and had to come to work, so I told Matt, I said, man, all this time you were the farmer. Now I'm a farmer too, so you got to teach me what to do and stuff. But a lot of guys have farms, and they're all trying to figure it out and stuff. But it's a good lifestyle. It's a good way of, getting out, doing hard work without it being the same routine as far as the fight stuff and everything. When you're lifting things, and picking up, bales of hay and things like that. No wonder Matt Hughes was as good as he was.
And Bryce Mitchell, too, with that farmer strength.
That's it, yeah. And Bryce Mitchell being a farmer, and that guy, I'll tell you what, he just had a great performance against Dan Ige. I was super impressed with what he did.
Yeah. Stole the show with the mic, too.
Yeah. You never know what's going to come out of him, and he's got all kinds of different things. Maybe I don't agree with all of them, but I love watching him, and I love the person he is.
Can we get a final message for all the Big John McCarthy fans out there worldwide?
Final message for me, hey, just go out and, if you can do something for someone else, go do it for them. Make things the best you can, and you know what? Just do the right thing.
Character counts. He's the pro. I'm the Schmo. San Diego, California, Bellator 300. We're out.